Hey, thanks for coming along on the Better Dads podcast. It's cool to have you here, and I'm excited for the conversation today. As sort of discussed, really this whole piece is really around, hey, how do we, as entrepreneurs, we're obviously dealing with a little bit of isolation in that, because the path to entrepreneurship can be, naturally people kind of fall away, or you're off kind of doing things that just other people aren't thinking about, and you've got to sacrifice probably a lot. So kind of want to explore that a little bit for you. And then similarly with fatherhood is, or becoming a parent, I suppose, can be quite isolating, because, similar thing, you're off doing things that potentially your other friends and family aren't doing, but also there is the opportunity there to be making new friends and things should that happen. But we all know that when you're having newborns, I guess it can be quite difficult. But you're a bit of a special case because you're all the way up, as you mentioned before, up in Warkworth. So that's probably even a smaller community, which potentially could mean either more isolation from maybe your old ways, or it could be a better community and more people down. So I'd love to sort of have a chat with you about that. You and I kind of reconnected back with the Clean Paleo days, so maybe that's probably a good place to begin. In terms of, what sort of led you down to the path of entrepreneurship? Was that always a goal for you, or is that something that sort of fell in?
Oh, man. I don't think it was really a conscious thought of mine growing up, like high school, university. I never really thought I'm going to have my own business. I basically just followed my interest and passion through my education. So I studied sports science down in Dunedin. So that was all like, how the body works and how it functions with exercise. And so sports physiology was my major. So that's what I came out of uni with. And then quickly realized that, that was like the stuff I loved learning and applying to myself. But there was no real clear path, a career path from that, apart from either becoming a PE teacher. A lot of people became PE teachers or being a personal trainer. So I sort of mucked around for a little bit, did lots of travel, didn't actually use my degree at all. And then I finally started using my degree when I landed a job in Western Australia in a mining village, and I was managing this little gym there. And that was a really incredible experience. I did it for 18 months, and that was probably also my first taste of isolation, because I was working 4-in-1 swings. I was working 4 weeks on, a 2-hour flight north of Perth, in the middle of the Red Desert. And I was very, I guess, like the type of person that I was in that environment was quite unique. Like there weren't very many young, healthy, health conscious people in that mining environment. Everyone was just like get home from the mine site and go to the bar and stuff like that. So my job was to try and train some people that were interested in health, and also try and convert these bar goers to like come to the gym and stuff. But when I was doing this job, I had so much downtime, and I just kept on learning, and I really developed my like interest more and more in health and wellness. And it went down more of a nutrition sort of alley. And at the same time, I had some friends back in New Zealand who were building this, they just started this business, Clean Paleo. And I was at the time like quite into the paleo lifestyle, paleo diet. I found that was the best sort of nutrition for my body. So then I thought, it'll be great to actually be able to merge my passion with some, hopefully, income. So then I joined into this business, Clean Paleo, back when it was just starting. And then essentially, that was it. I didn't really think too much about it. It was just a natural progression for me. And it was at an age where I didn't have a family. I didn't have a partner. had very little responsibility. And I also had saved up some cash from this mining job, which paid incredibly well. So that it wasn't a risky decision for me to jump on into this. So I just jumped on into it. And from then on, I've been on this entrepreneurial journey. So, that was back 10 years ago, 11 or 12 years ago, actually, I think was Clean Paleo, when that sort of started, and that's when we reconnected. For the listeners here, the first time we met would have been primary school. Tom and I went to the same primary school. And But then, yeah, then we reconnected around the, like, Tom and Luke and the Clean Paleo days, where we were just sifting around those food shows and trying to convince people to eat healthily. And
Still trying.
still trying, man. But yeah, that's how I started getting into, owning my own businesses and that sort of thing. And from then on, I think that I've always thought it would be very hard to go back to working for someone else, I think.
Yeah. Hey, you mentioned before just around sort of that first taste of isolation with being in the mines. Can you talk a little bit more about that as far as, coming out of university? Obviously, was university quite social for you, or were you there more straight studying? And then I guess kind of, in terms of landing in the mines, was it the isolation in, I guess, sort of the nature of the role, being 4 weeks away from sort of the people that you're maybe close with? Or, I mean, being in Australia, that's also different from being here as well, right? So was there isolation just in general being in Australia, and then going to the mines and kind of maybe feeling like, oh, I'm the only person here thinking this way? And I've had a couple of other friends of mine that worked in mines as well, and they talk of the culture there being very similar to what you're just saying as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, like being kind of like that. Yeah, am I the only person here that thinks like this? Because that in itself can be obviously very isolating too. So
yeah. No, it was isolating on so many different levels. Yeah, obviously it was my first time. I traveled to the States, and I'd done like a couple of stints, couple of summers of Camp America. So I was very happy doing my own thing overseas. Australia is not too dissimilar to New Zealand in many ways, but then it was mainly the isolation of the job, geographically, and also it's quite hard. Just you're geographically isolated from normal society, and you're working every single day. So it's like you're working every single day for 4 weeks. You have one day off in the middle, and it's the same every day. And it's Western Australia, where it's usually sunny and hot every single day. And it's just this, you're just going round in circles every day. So a 4-in-1 swing, 4 weeks on, 1 week off, is the longest swing that most people do. People don't last in that sort of role very long, because it's very mentally tough. I found that I had this, one way that I helped to cope with that was I just looked at each 4-week stint as an opportunity to get something out of it. So I started treating each month block as a test for myself to determine what was a good way to train my body, and also what fuel to put in my body with nutrition. So I did it like a month test on like all these different types of nutrition and ways of training, and I just experimented a lot. And I felt like, because I had something that I was working towards and some sort of purpose in that 1 month block, it made it certainly more palatable, those long stints of isolation.
Did depression enter in at all at that stage?
No, it didn't. And I think it didn't, because I was exercising a lot. And for me, I've realized that exercise is my everything, in terms of a magic pill to make me feel good, physically and mentally. The main reason I train these days is to make me feel good mentally. I think that if I wasn't doing that, then I would have been feeling pretty, in some dark places. I was thinking about this the other day. The only time I've ever really felt depressed was back when I was straight out of uni, doing a job that I hated. I was commuting an hour each day. I was living in Auckland. I was isolated from my friends. So I didn't have a social thing. I wasn't exercising, and I just hated going to work every day. And that was just a really a great sort of recipe for not feeling too good in the head. So yeah,
I guess in terms of with where you are now, you've kind of gone and done the studies, then sort of seen those options, and maybe they're not okay. The options following to the degree that I have or aren't necessarily as broad as what I want to do. Did a bit of travel, come back, landed in Aussie, saw an opportunity with some friends, then ticked on with that, and then I guess, has everything else sort of from then been a bit of an opportunity and a jump, or has there been, I guess, sort of some planning and execution following that period of time?
Good question. Zero planning. I think I came back to New Zealand and started working on Clean Paleo about 18 months after I came back and started on Clean Paleo. I then got this opportunity to go on TV and be on The Bachelor. And that was one of the scariest moments of my life, was that first day of filming.
I'll bet.
It was terrifying. But I think, I really like to push myself into unknowns. And I also looked back on that. I mean, at the time I was like, one of the main reasons I said yes to doing that was that I didn't want to look back and feel like I had some regrets over not taking that opportunity, because I just had no idea what would come from it. So after I then went on The Bachelor, I felt like I really had very little control over what was the opportunities that were going to present themselves to me. And so I have probably over the last 10 years been very fluid and flexible, in that I would have been able to, well, actually up until we started having kids anyway, which was 6 years ago. So for, I guess, like 5 years, just kind of going with different opportunities as they present themselves, lots of different travel, lots of different, jobs, hosting TV shows and things like that. And it's stuff that I haven't been able to plan for. You can't really plan for getting those sort of opportunities. Sure, you can work towards things, you can upskill to put yourself in a better position for some of that stuff. But like, social media is my main form of income at the moment, and you can produce great content so that your people, like brands and companies, want you to then want to work with you. But a lot of the time it's just sort of luck and timing, and you just can't really plan on when these jobs are going to come in. So there's a bit of just luck and a bit of just free flowing and learning to be okay with that.
Have you always wanted to be a dad? Have you always sort of thought, I'm going to be a dad, can't wait?
Yeah.
Or again, was that sort of something that sort of was, I'll go with the flow?
Yeah, I've always wanted to be a dad. Always wanted to be a dad. Always thought I would be a dad. I remember in my teens, I've got a memory of lying in bed and I needed to get up and do something, and I was like, oh God, I just can't be bothered, doing this. And then I'm like, no, it's good to get up and do this now, because it's like good training for when I'm a dad, because I know that when I'm a parent, I know you've got to do all this stuff for other people that you can't be bothered doing. So in my mind, I'm like, I've been training to be a dad since I can remember. I don't know why that is. I guess, I've just always looked at being a dad as something that I think that is very purposeful and something that I would be very good at. And maybe that came from my childhood. I had I had cousins, and I loved being an older cousin and playing with these kids and looking after them. I've got two half sisters who are 15 and 17 years younger than me. So, the first one arrived when I was only 15, and I was quite involved in their upbringing with as them as little babies and toddlers and stuff. And I loved that. So, perhaps that was a little bit of that development there for me as well.
Let's talk a little bit about, I guess, your family, your upbringings, in terms of the relationship with your dad, and kind of feeling like, oh yeah, I know I'm going to be a good dad. I know I want to be a dad. Was that sort of a reflection from him, or was that more, to what you're sort of saying there around the step up? Okay, I'm 15. I've got a couple of young half sisters. This is something I can do. I'm good at it. Oh, this isn't so bad.
Yeah, my parents split up when I was 6, and then mostly living with my mum and my sister, who's 1 year older than me, for most of my home life from then on. Would see my dad in the weekends, and my dad has always been there for me physically, but probably not emotionally. And I don't know where that drive to be a good dad comes from, or at least a parent comes from. I don't know if it really comes from my dad. Like, I know he didn't plan on being a dad when he was a dad. Like my sister was a happy surprise, and I'm pretty sure I was too. And so I think he fell into it probably sooner than he would have wanted to. So then he remarried my stepmom, and then had 2 daughters. And I reckon he's probably done a lot of things parent-wise, father-wise, second time around with my half-sisters, probably did that better than he did with me and my full sister, in terms of being present and just being more of a conscious parent, probably. I know that conscious parent term's been just thrown around all the time, but I think he probably, second time around, I think he had a lot more practice. So
and your half-sisters, they were planned, like they were expected, you and your sister, your full sister,
Yes.
being...
Yeah.
accidents?
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
so. I presume so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So how did that, I guess, sort of impact you? Because I mean, 6 is quite a conscious age.
Yeah.
It's not quite the turbulent age of, sort of being in that preteen era, but you're still, probably were quite aware of what was going on.
Yeah. Yeah, it was really hard actually. Lived on a farm in the Wairarapa, just north of Wellington, and then parents split up, moved with my mum and sister down to Wellington, and it was like I changed schools, so it was very emotional time for me, and I was pretty. I don't know if I was difficult. I don't think my mum would describe me as difficult, but probably just really annoying at times. Like I was very attention seeky, and other family members thought I was just like really annoying. Didn't really want me to be around, So I definitely went through some stuff there.
And how do you think that impacted you as far as your development, like looking back on it now and kind of seeing where you are, the way that you are, and what you've done?
I feel I look at it like a gift. I feel as though I am so much stronger and more resilient. I'm a far better person. I feel like I'm more empathetic. I mean, it's hard to really dial into any one aspect of your life's development, but I do think that my parents splitting up has really made me a better person and certainly a more resilient, stronger person.
How did that impact you and your sister in terms of like, there's some people that for when they split, the kids become like a chess piece. They become a toy between these two adults that are kind of at each other. Others, it's just kind of a full amicable, all right, we understand we're putting the kids first for everything. And obviously sort of everything in between.
Our parents were pretty good. They didn't get on, but we didn't have to see that too much. They were pretty good. Kept everything away from us. I remember, I've got memories of some like phone calls and stuff when they're shouting at each other, but fighting over like table, like chairs and things, and just all those like useless things that like neither of them actually wanted these dining chairs, but it was the principle. Yeah, they did a really good job of distancing us from that side of their breakup, I think.
And how did that impact you as far as your own relationships?
I think I've always been reasonably maybe reserved with like meeting people and starting relationships and just not going full steam ahead. So maybe I've developed a bit of caution from that, because I want to make sure that maybe the person I'm with is someone that I'm going to stay with.
Obviously, you and Maddie, you guys met on a game show, very public, very out there in the open. When you look at other people that have gone through the same thing, those relationships are not there and they kind of haven't carried on in the way that you guys have. So like you guys appear to be successful in the relationship. Obviously, you've got family together, you're doing things together. What do you think the big driver is that's allowed you guys to be different or to kind of be that beacon, I suppose, when, so many other people that have gone on these kind of shows, it just doesn't work out that way?
Yeah, I think the main thing would be luck. Honestly, I think that it was just pure luck that her and I were on the same show at the same time. I even think about it like, it's luck that people meet on Tinder, right? And that's like, for us, that TV show was just a way of meeting, because the relationship didn't start until after that show ended. We got off that show and we'd spent 20 minutes together off camera. And when you're on camera, you don't really get to talk about things you want to talk about. Like the directors say like, hey, look, yeah, well, okay, we know that you want to talk about like if you've got cats and dogs, but you talked about that with Sally. So that's not good TV. We need you to talk about like if you want to have kids and when you want to get married and all that sort of stuff. So anyway, we finished the show and Maddie and I were like, okay, cool, we're together. We didn't even know each other. And so we're like, okay, well, let's look at this as let's go on a first date, see how it goes. And sure, it was pretty fucked because, we had a lot of pressure on us from just all areas. And even to the point where it's like, for the first 2 months after the show ended, when we were trying to have this start up a relationship, see if it works, we couldn't be in public. So we had to go to like meet up at secret locations. And we both were working. So then it would be like after work, go meet up at my uncle's house where we could stay because he's away. And then it would be like, do we even like sleep in the same bed? And like, it was just a fucking weird scenario. But part of that, I think, was that it was just so strange. And we went through such a unique scenario together that we grew really strong and we had to support each other through it. We grew quite a lot as people very quickly, I think. And then I think one of the biggest things for us has been our communication, because for the first year of our relationship, I'd say, I mean, Maddie would agree with this too, but she would just say stuff and not really mean it, or say things that she thought I would want to hear. And I remember I had this conversation with her one time, and I was like, okay, Maddie, you can't just say that you love this, or like, this is great, because you say that for everything, and I have no idea what you really think about stuff. And I've been brought up, this comes from my mum, but she's very direct, like way too direct at certain times. But part of that's rubbed off on me, and I think in a positive way. And I think that, if you're going to have a good relationship with someone, you need to have really good communication. I think communication is one of the most important things. And to have that good communication, you need some truth and transparency. And that's something that Maddie had to learn, because I think she shielded herself a lot from her upbringing. So we sort of like had to work to break that down and build this communication. And now I think it's just one of our main things that keeps us so great and in each other's heads all the time. We just know what each other's thinking, and we're so at ease around each other because of it.
Were you able to lean on your dad in terms of, I guess, asking him for advice? Like obviously, relationship with your mum broke down, but then you've obviously seen him sort of shine, as you said, shine and grow, and probably doing a little bit better with that. With his, is it they're still together now?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess sort of seeing the man that he was, not necessarily as your dad, but the man that he became. Were you able to kind of lean on and get some advice from him, and any sort of tips and things?
I think the main thing from my dad through my adult life, which I think of as like, 27, I reckon that's when my adult life started. That's when I went on The Bachelor. For some reason, for me, that's like, I feel like that's when I started being an adult. From then on, my dad is just, I've really noticed his unwavering support of me, more than any other family member. A lot of my family didn't understand my life, I guess, after going on the show. They didn't understand that Maddie and my relationship was real. And, a few like teething issues with, I don't know, just accepting my life. But my dad has, without a doubt, been my biggest supporter through everything. I can always count on him to pick me up if I'm feeling down, if I'm feeling unsure about something. I can call him, and he always has a positive spin on whatever it is. So I always feel better after a conversation with him. So that's sort of like an overarching theme that he has brought into my life and made me realize as being a really important attribute of a dad, and that I really want to be for my kids, is just like this unwavering supportive figure.
And have you had some opportunity to talk to him about his experience in terms of, with your mum and the separation, and kind of how that impacted him and what he went through?
That's a really interesting question. I haven't really talked about that too much with him. I talked about it a lot with my mum, but I actually haven't, and that's probably something that I'd like to do one day. He's comes from a generation of men that are not very emotionally available to their kids, and that comes from his parents. Like his mum, my grandma, would never have said that she loved him to him. And I had this realization actually probably about maybe 6 years ago, just after I had my son, our oldest boy. We've got a 6-year-old boy, 4-year-old girl, and 2-year-old girl. So when we had my son, I would hang up on a phone call, and I always tell my mum I love her, but I never had said that to my dad. And I thought, I really do love my dad, and I want to tell him that. So then I called him one day, and I said, hey, Dad, I am going to say that I love you. I'm going to start saying that I love you at the end of phone calls and when I see you. And I don't expect you to say it back, but I just want you to know that I do love you, and I'm going to let you know. And then he said, he took a moment, and then he's like, wow. He's like, I love you too. And so from then on, we always say we love each other, and it's really cool.
Magic. Yeah. So you've sort of taken, that realization, the healing maybe within you has then kind of led to that, and you're giving that gift to your dad.
It felt like I was almost like breaking the cycle or something. So, I mean, I encourage anyone to do the same. I mean, I've got friends who even, they would never say that, don't even say to their mum that they love them and stuff. And I just think maybe it's something when you become a parent, you realize how much you love your kids and how much you sacrifice for them. I don't know, and maybe having kids makes you really appreciate your own parents.
You mentioned before that sort of like 27 was the age that you felt like you're becoming an adult, like you're becoming a man. Like, was it the jumping on the show, or I mean, is there any other kind of moment or phase that sort of stands out at that point?
I reckon at the time, 27-year-old me, I probably would have thought I'm not an adult. But I think looking back now, I'm like, I think that's when I was becoming an adult. And I think it's because I was taking a lot of weight on my shoulders, and it forced me to level up in a lot of ways, and it forced me to just get a bit more of my shit together.
So just going back as well to the growing up phase. So growing up on a farm, that's pretty cool. Is that part of the inspiration for where you are now?
Yeah,
you're out there, you're building this, edible garden, and
trying to live as close to nature as possible, I guess, is what I would, I love, whilst also being part of a community. So, I definitely think that having grown up on a farm, I always like being close to nature. I feel recharged from walking in nature, from walking on grass, from being barefoot, from walking amongst trees, from listening to birds. It's a really powerful thing for me. So absolutely, that's been like a homing beacon in a way, trying to get back to that.
So coming from the middle of nowhere, moving to Wellington, parents are separated, you're there with your mum. Like, were there any other, I guess, the men or the male role models around for you during that time?
Not really. My mum definitely had boyfriends, long-term boyfriends, but none of them ever really took the time to connect with me. And probably part of that is because my dad was still quite present. And I think the men that my mum had as boyfriends didn't share the same interests as me, because at that age of, I guess, 8 through to my early teens, I was very sporty. My dad's very sporty. So him and I connect a lot through sport. And these other boyfriends of my mum's that she had at the time were probably not really interested in that sort of thing, so they didn't really probably know how to hang out with me. I guess it's quite weird if you don't have kids, especially boys, at that sort of like 7 to 10 age. It can be quite hard to know how to interact with them.
And how is that for you? Like, the Mines is a heavily male workspace, right? And then you're in Australia, extreme males, hard, rugged landscapes, and all that sort of stuff. Like, how was that kind of coming from a boy who's raised by his mum, capital city, university, Otago, cold, different climate, and then boom, you're stuck in this space of surrounded by men, rugged men, drinkers, probably not giving a shit about, obviously, health.
Just interesting folk, I think I was lucky in that I was comfortable in myself enough to still be myself in that environment, whereas had it been a couple of years before that, maybe when I was still trying to figure out who I was, then I might try and be more like these people around me and trying to conform to their idea of normal behavior, I guess. So I was just completely being myself, to the point where I remember had a conversation with, I think it was a girl that I worked with. She goes, "Everyone thinks you're gay." I was like, "Really?" He's like, "Yeah, everyone thinks you're gay because like the way you speak, just because like I was like well dressed, I spoke well, had good manners, all these like rugged minors, like, oh, he's fucking gay, he's a poofter."
Were there any situations there that you had to, I guess, sort of in terms of conflict or confrontation, that you had to sort of deal with or overcome because of that?
I've always been very good at diffusing confrontation and conflict. So there might have been some times where there were some guys there that I could easily get on these guys would be trying to get on the wrongs, like make me on the wrongs, get on the wrong side of me, sort of thing, or like trying to aggravate. So I just learned pretty quickly how to diffuse situations, and I just don't care for that sort of thing. So I'm happy for people to just think a certain, thing about me if it just makes my life easier. I don't even, it's kind of hard to explain, but I'm just not too fussed about any sort of social politics, if that makes sense.
It's a skill to have, especially as a dad with a couple of children. Like, are you finding that those skills are easily transferable to your young offspring?
Oh man, I wish they were. I mean, yes, definitely. I think trying to teach these sort of skills now to my 6-year-old, he's old enough to now understand how to be conscious of his behavior in a way that impacts other people. So there's some stuff that we can like chat about and talk about, and he understands, and he can then try out himself. But then I'm just thinking about like me personally trying to diffuse conflict with them. And oh man, it's so hard in the heat of the moment to like not yell at your kids. And yeah, it's like a constant, I mean, almost like every night at the moment, Maddie and I will get the kids into bed and we'll have a little debrief of like how we can try and implement a new parenting tactic to do some things better. And yeah, it's always like a forever evolving thing. I think there's definitely some skills you can learn, and I don't even know, I think it's like conscious parenting. I've done a little course on that, which was helpful. But at the end of the day, I think that even the fact that a lot of parents of our generation I gotta stop saying conscious parenting, but we are conscious about the way we parent. I think by default, we are going to be superior parents to our parents' generation in many ways, because we're like even just wanting to be good parents. Whereas I think parents of our parents' generation and the generation before them, they were just like, you know, parenting is just a thing that happens. Kids can be a bit of a burden sometimes. You just got to slap them into line and don't treat them so much as little people. But now I think there's a bit more emphasis on trying to be a really good parent, and I'm hoping that that's going to result in some really good people growing up.
What resources sort of stands out that you think would be good that's really kind of made you go, oh man, I tried this thing and this was like gold?
Yeah, the main one for me was all about just trying to not be such a reactive parent. And so taking the time, instead of yelling at my kid to put their shoes on, would be like, go up to your kid, connect with your kid and say, hey, how you going? Or like, hey, love that you're playing with the Lego. That's really cool. Can you put your shoes on now? Because we got to go. So come on, let's go and do that now, and maybe like help them a little bit more. And I've realized that, I mean, it doesn't always work, right? And I do it maybe, I don't know, say 50% of the time, but 50% of the time is still better than 0% of the time. And there's still 50% of the time when I'm just like, fuck, I don't have time for this. Like, hurry the fuck up. I mean, I don't say, I'd never swear in front of my kids.
You're human, man.
They've never heard me swear, actually. But I always look back and I'm like, actually, if I had taken the time to slow down and connect and do it this non-reactive way, I would have actually saved time in the long run, because it may have taken me an extra minute, like, I don't know, 20 seconds to connect with my kid, to then they go about and they do their thing, and maybe I have to help them a little bit, but that's maybe taken like 2 minutes. Whereas if I'm like, can you put your shoes on? Can you put your shoes on? Can you put your shoes on now? We need to go. I need you to put your shoes on now. It's like, that's 10 minutes, 10 minutes has gone like that, and we're no closer to getting out the door. So that's one thing. And the other thing is, I realized that life has far less stress when you've got more time with the kids. And so I think just being way better at time management, doing things as early as I can. I try and remove as much rush as I can. If you're going to remove rush, then everyone is better, because as soon as we're rushed, we get stressed about it. Then we get like, aggressive towards the kids because we need to be going, and then it just evolves, and everyone is just in a bad space. So if there's any way that you can just do things early, not be rushed. I love early dinners. When I'm cooking, I somehow dinner at 4:30 so that we're
living on a farm, bro.
Mate, living on a farm. And then it's just like, cool, we just like chill and like play after dinner, and just slowly go about our way getting into bed. And that's how I like to do things.
That's really cool. I definitely agree that I actually did a little write up on that on my Substack the other day. Like it may feel in your head at the time, it may feel like it's taken ages, but it's actually not. Like if you had a clock next to you, as you said, like, oh, it's probably only 20 seconds to do this, but that versus not only the time that it takes to actually have that argument with somebody who doesn't have the mental capacity to understand really what's going on, but it's also that down the line effect, isn't it? Like then they get into the car and, then they're still stroppy and they haven't regulated their emotions, and you haven't regulated their emotions. And then maybe later on you get that dad guilt.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally, man. Yeah. And then, no, but you're right. It's a flow on thing of them feeling heard and you having connected with them, because then they're going to be more likely to like listen to you in the future and like do things like take your advice on, like, we've got like 5 minutes at the playground. Let's like go and do that, but we got to only got 5 minutes. So when I say it's time to go, we got to go. And then they're like, okay, cool. And then they listen to you, you know?
I just really want to ask this in terms of always feeling like you were going to be a dad and having that thought at 15 of being like, oh yeah, I got to get up and do the hard thing in the middle of the night because when I'm a parent, I'm going to need to get up and it's not going to be an option.
Yeah.
In terms of the reality of when you did become a dad, did that training or that mindset, did that A, have any actual carryover? And B, I guess, how did it change, or how did you change? And also, how was the reality of being a father for you, who obviously wanted to be a father and was planning and expecting to be? How was that actually different to the imagined or the dream vision that you had?
Yeah. Okay. So firstly, I think my sort of self-imposed training throughout my life of getting up to do annoying things translates perfectly to parenthood because I feel like, I'm always getting up when I've just sat down to go and do something. But in terms of the reality of parenthood, I think that nothing can really, I guess things probably can prepare you for parenthood. Like, a lot of people who have lots of younger siblings. And so they are actually very involved with the upbringing of their younger siblings as if they are a parent. Like that does probably you train to become a parent. I don't feel like I quite had that. So that when I did become a parent, I think I found it harder than I thought it would be in terms of it's like you have to sacrifice so much of your life and your time. Your life completely changes, and if you are an involved parent, then you have to sacrifice your old life, and there's no way around that. And you can look at that as a negative, or you can probably look at that as like that's just an evolution of my life. And that is, for me, that's just a reality of what my life is now. But I always used to think, because I had this mentality of like, I'm always going to be a parent. I thought like everyone always wants to be a parent. I literally thought that everyone always wants to be a parent. So then I remember I had a friend going up who's like, I don't think I want kids. And I was like, why? And they're just like, I just don't know, I just don't really want to. And I was like, okay. And I couldn't really understand that. And then I think probably after about 1 year of being a parent, I was like, you know what? I can totally see why people don't want to be parents. Like it's no, because like everyone always sells you on how great kids are and how great being a parent is, right? Especially if you're like, oh, we're thinking about having kids. It's like parents will be like, yeah, do it. It's the best thing. Like you get so much purpose. But I remember thinking like, yeah, cool. For a lot of people, that is a thing, right? But also for a lot of people, it's not, and it's also a huge sacrifice. You're essentially doing the hardest, most demanding job in the world, and you don't get paid for it. In fact, it makes it harder for you to earn because you maybe don't have as much time to do the job that you were doing. So I can totally see why people don't want to have kids, and I totally respect that.
Is there any advice that you wish you had received, or that would have been more helpful?
I don't think there's any advice that I wish I had, because I think if I had any advice that was useful, it would make me less likely to want to have kids. Do you know what I mean? Like, and I also think that you don't really need any advice because you learn as you go. A lot of the time, when you're ready to learn some stuff and pick up advice, you seek that advice. Because otherwise, a lot of the time, especially in the early days of parenting, you get given so much unsolicited advice that you don't want. So I don't know. It's really hard to really dial in on any specific advice. I think when you know you want to have kids, then there'll be like, so many different like specific bits of advice, but overarching, I don't know. I can't really think of anything.
Okay.
Something that might actually help would be if you're going to have, someone, especially a dad who's about to have a kid or going to have a kid or has maybe a newborn, is don't feel bad if you don't feel an initial connection with your young child.
Mm-hmm.
I think the mum has a benefit of having grown this little baby, this little soul inside their body. So they have a different sort of connection, especially in the newborn era when realistically, like this kid's has a bit of a blob, doesn't give much back, can look pretty ugly. And so, it's hard to form a connection with something like that sometimes. And I feel like I didn't really connect with my kids and like really feel like I loved them, maybe for like, I don't know, 6 months, maybe more. I can't really remember. Yeah, don't be alarmed if you don't feel that initial, I love this kid. Don't feel alarmed if it doesn't come naturally to you instantly at the start. Like this thing, this love and this relationship as a dad certainly needs to grow over the first like 6 months, I reckon.
I 100% agree. It's kind of like you're, as a dad, at that phase, you're kind of there as a duty, like kind of obviously making sure mum's supported, making sure, she's got what she needs, getting the rest, you're probably doing things a little bit more, but you're kind of going, oh yeah, sweet, I'll do this, but what am I feeling about this thing? Because I don't want to break it.
Yeah.
Totally. I know what I'm doing over here. And then this thing, I've got no clue.
Yeah.
But I definitely know that there's a lot of men, and I've heard that advice, or not. I don't know if that's necessarily advice, but definitely heard that sentiment from quite a few men in terms of it's almost like when the child starts to become more active and more interactive, that's when the man switches on, because then they start going, oh, here's something I can do. I'm doing something. There's an energy level. There's an exchange going on here. This is something familiar to me. Yeah. And then that bond comes in, and then it just gets more exciting because you're like, oh wow, let's try this, and then they're doing that thing that you want to do, and they're like, whoa, you're watching this thing kind of unfold. So yeah, it's definitely, I definitely can relate with that. Did you in that infancy phase, or even in maybe it's individual to each of your children, but I guess remembering back to your firstborn, did you experience any isolation? So I guess kind of for me, I noticed that with mums, it seems to be pretty natural, and I don't know if it's natural from an evolutionary point of view. Maybe it is, but mums seem to be pretty good at finding a group of other mums that are all doing that, and then they can have those conversations and they kind of have connection. We still live in a day and age where typically the man will mum will be on maternity leave, man will be out of the house and working and that sort of thing. And then so the mums are looking for that connection, that bond, and they've got other people around. But for dads, there doesn't necessarily seem to be that, unless you've either got friends that have got kids the same age or family that are close. Did you experience any sort of isolation, or did you have some good people around you and other dads that were going through the same thing? How did you, I guess, sort of survive that infancy phase?
Yeah, I definitely think we were reasonably isolated. It might have been during some lockdowns too. So definitely some isolation. It didn't bother me too much. I think maybe it bothered Maddie a little bit more. Where I didn't feel too isolated because I had Maddie, and I felt like we were so tight that it was, it was okay. But in hindsight, I think it would have been better if I wasn't so isolated. You're so time poor during those young child months and maybe even years. You're so time poor that like, how do you go about socializing, and how do you go about meeting new friends? Meeting new friends is hard as an adult. Connecting with old friends is a good one, especially if they've got kids. Yeah, it's a funny scenario, really, isn't it? Like, as soon as we have kids, we just like go into our own little houses and isolate ourselves. It's like, it's not the way that things should be. We should be living in communities, and it being, this like raised by a village kind of scenario. Like, it would be great if we actually did that.
Have you got that now? Like, do you feel like you've had an opportunity to connect with? Have you got some other men and other dads around you?
Yeah, I do. I'm still not as close to other men around me, like geographically, as I am my childhood friends in university and high school and even primary school friends. I'm still closer with them, and I do keep in touch with those guys quite a lot. And I think that I'm only now reaching out and doing stuff with these other men that are like, these would be like my new friends. That's only happening now with my kids are a little bit older, because I just feel like I have more freedom to do things at night. And also, I guess, because Maddie and I, we're far more competent parents now, where it's like, I don't mind if Maddie goes and does some stuff and hangs out with her friends in the evening or whatever, because I feel confident of being a parent and I can look after the 3 kids and do all that sort of stuff now. Whereas even when we just had 1 kid, it was like you'd feel a bit guilty if you went out while the other parent was doing the parenting. So that guilt has gone now, which is great.
Is that because of the ages of the kids as they've gone through, and then now there's some support from the eldest kind of looking after the other kids? Or is that just more like, cool, we're practiced at this now?
We're just like more practiced at it, and it's just like more of a machine, and there are less variables, and you know what the variables are going to be, and you know how to deal with them, and you don't get so stressed over things. And so it's like we just don't feel guilty leaving the other one to have to do it. And so I feel like we've got more time now to reach out to people and to socialize again and build these connections with other people.
So you mentioned earlier around like the solidarity in your relationship being really heavily based around the communication. I know a lot of people that do still experience that guilt piece, or kind of the, even in their kids that are teenagers. So like, oh, I feel bad being away from them, or they're still sort of experiencing that. Have you got any, I guess, sort of words of wisdom for people that might be in that situation?
Really, I think it's all about feeling valued, and also feeling like you're sharing the load in some way, or like, sharing the load equally. So really just being very open about that. And if like there are times where like, we've had conversations around, my mentality is that if there are jobs that need to be done, I'll do them, and I won't stop until the job's done. So if there are dishes to do, I'll do them. If I've cooked dinner, I don't care if there are dishes, I'll do the dishes. I would always be doing the dishes, and Maddie would be spending this time like scrolling on her phone. And I said to her, like, it doesn't feel fair that I'm always doing dishes and I'm doing this. And she's like, well, why didn't you say so? Like, I didn't know that you were doing this. Like, I had no idea about any of this. And I was like, oh, okay. So, right. So she just needs me to like actually tell her, like, just to be like fully open with this thing. Whereas in my mind, I was like, oh man, it was like doing my head in. And so then we just started being very open, communicating everything. And I think now we are very good at knowing that each of us is doing our best to like, we're this family team. And so we're working as a team for the family. We're always doing something that's like a positive sort of thing for the family. And so it feels very even.
Yeah. No, totally. It sounds like, communication. It's the biggest thing for kind of keeping that. And being honest about what your needs are and being met and understanding that.
Yeah. And feeling valued, and that shared valued thing, because like it's different when it can be a tricky one to figure out when there are different working dynamics as well. Like if one parent is working and the other parent is more parenting, then it's like, how does that, you just got to figure out how to even that out. And I mean, each relationship is different, so it's all completely subjective. But yeah, it can take a while to figure that out and figure out that dynamic. And it was definitely an interesting dynamic for Maddie and I, and it is continually evolving too. Like we both work from home and we're both parenting at the same time, because our 2-year-old's with us, so she doesn't go to daycare. And so we just like juggle the parenting, juggle the working. We make it work. But there are some periods of time where, like last year, Maddie was working on the radio, so she had like a full-time job on the radio. So then I was on the kids more full time. So I was like a full time dad. Yeah, it's just different dynamics that then it kind of fluctuates and moves. But I think if you're on the same page and communicate through that, then it's the best way to be.
How do you switch off? What's your downtime and what's your rest and recovery?
I used to meditate a lot, and that would be a really good way for me to switch off mentally, because it was like a sit down, stop thinking about things. My mind is such that I'm always thinking about the next job and always thinking about what needs to be done. And I like that quality about me. Like it's super useful, but it also means that I'm always thinking about things and I struggle to be present. And I have to really focus on being present when I'm with my kids, but that's something that I've just learned how to do, which I like. But for me, switching off is I go to the gym and I work out. Sometimes I work out at home, but I actually prefer to go outside of home and go to a gym, because then I have this different location, easier to get into a mindset. And when I'm doing that, I'm just like, I'm not thinking about anything. I'm thinking about pushing my body, pushing myself hard. And I think that that's a really good outlet for me, helps to regulate me. Sauna has been really good, because when I'm in the sauna, I would meditate in the sauna, but also sometimes I just stop and think. And it's not that often that I would be stopping and not doing anything during the day and actually just thinking about stuff. And so by doing that there, or even if I try and meditate and my mind's all scattered thinking about things, even that is super useful, because you're kind of like shining this torch on some aspects of things in your life that you want to think about. And you're doing it there while you're meditating. And although it may not feel like you're having a good meditation, you're not getting very deep, it's super useful, because then I find that I'm not thinking about things when I'm trying to sleep so much. So yeah, meditation when I can. I do also jump into an ice bath every now and then, most days actually. And that is more of regulates my nervous system, calms me down. So I might even have one up straight after this, just because I know that I'm going to be back into the kids, and it gives me a really nice type of energy. It's not like a coffee energy, which can make me feel jittery. It's like a really good energy. All I want to do is like connect with my kids after that. So yeah, that's a cool one for me.
Were you impacted heavily with the lack of sleep stuff? I mean, exercises, as you mentioned earlier, it's a big part of your life. It's how you keep regulated. But obviously, when we've got kids and when sleep's interrupted, that's going to impact our metabolism and our recovery anyway. And then adding physical stress to these things, it is just really more stress. But how did you navigate all of that, those periods of no sleep, trying to do all your jobs and everything that you do? And
Yeah, that's so hard. I mean, everyone deals with lack of sleep when they've got young kids, and you definitely do acclimatize to it for sure. You do. And you also, I prioritize sleep. So sleep is like it's the top of the thing for me. Exercise sits below it. So if I had planned on getting up early and going and doing a workout because I know it's going to make me feel amazing. If I don't sleep that well, I won't do the workout. I will get the sleep in instead because I know that it's going to be more beneficial for me than trying to exercise with, hardly any sleep. So for me, sleep is a non-negotiable to try and optimize. And in fact, sometimes I even think about it like from the moment I wake up, I'm like optimizing my day to get the best sleep that night. From the moment I wake up, it's like, cool, I know that, and it doesn't always work like this. And this is an ideal scenario and it doesn't work with certain times of the year, but like, getting some sunlight in my eyes first thing in the morning, I know that that's going to set my circadian rhythm so that I'm going to be able to fall asleep at the end of the day better. Like, cool, I'm going to do some exercise today because I know that's going to make me sleep better. Different foods I'm going to eat, I know that's going to help me sleep better. All of this stuff is like towards the goal of having a good night's sleep at the end of the day. And I think that's a really good way to go. And also knowing that trying to take the pressure off sleep as well, with the thought that like my body knows what it's doing. My body knows when it needs to get more sleep and it will get that sleep back. And if it's not tonight, that's okay. I get another shot at it tomorrow night. And then also just with the sleepless kids and the wake ups and stuff, it's like everything's a phase. And that's a general rule with kids is like everything's a phase. You think that you get stuck in this way of like, oh my God, my kid's like waking up 4 times a night and I'm getting no sleep. It's going to be like this for the rest of my life. Like it's going to be like this I've got this for like 3 more years. And then in a week's time, maybe they're waking up 2 times a night. Or, my son went through a phase of being really hard to deal with, like maybe about 6 months ago. He was like, just couldn't, there's nothing, he'd throw tantrums, nothing we could take away from him, give him that would help control him. He was going through a phase. He just needed to figure out how things work. Took him maybe like 2 weeks. It was a challenging time. And then after the 2 weeks, it's like back to normal. It's like better than ever. And it's like, okay, everything's a phase,
Are there things with that that you've experienced with having a boy that have helped you understand your dad a little bit better?
Oh, I don't know. Nah, probably not. I think one thing that's been, I think, a really interesting thing for me is that I just have always assumed that my kids are going to be really athletic. Good at sports. My dad was really good at sport. I've always been really good at sport, good at athletics. I used to come home from the inter-school, the Western Zone sports back to Northland School and like stand up in front of the class and I'd like be like, I won the high jump, I won the long jump, I won the cricket ball throw. Like I just win everything, And then I just kind of assumed that my kids would be like that. But already I'm seeing that my son is like not that interested in sport. And I mean, he is only 6. So, I mean, he might get into sport, but still I'm like, oh, I mean, maybe he won't be, and like, I've got to be okay with that.
How are you changing? How is that shifting your perspective?
It's making me think about and value other aspects of just like interest. He's interested in music. He's just started doing piano lessons and he loves it. It's so cool. And so my plan is that we've been talking about it. He's going to learn a song and then he's going to have to teach me the song because I don't know how to play the piano. So he's going to be my teacher. And yeah, and he loves creating things. So I just try and nurture that and we just create cool things together.
So what does being a good father mean to you?
I think it means being a good father. Being a good father means being someone who is solid as a rock for you as a kid, and as a son or daughter of a dad. Someone that is solid as a rock for you, always has your back, always supports you. And I want to say like a great role model, but like, that's pretty cliche. And I guess you just want to be role modeling these really meaningful attributes and values. And so I guess for me, I want to be role modeling, being kind and caring, listening. And also, I really think it's important to try and have as much fun as possible. Like actually, that's one thing. My dad's always been really fun. Always been really fun, always been really funny. And I find myself slipping into a seriousness that I don't want to be all the time. Like I've got all these like worries and burdens on my shoulders, and I distance. My kids will never know about this, like I don't want them to ever have to worry about a thing until they're old enough for it to be a positive for them to have to worry about stuff. But, in these early years, I just want them to have as much fun as possible and to not have any worries. And so I want to be able to take the stresses of life on board and to then put them in a different box, to then just be this really fun dad, fun present dad around my kids. That's what I reckon would be the ideal dad for me.
No, like 100%. I mean, my big thing has been around helping dads role model that good health through physical movement. Because for me, the thing is, we're all going to get older. I mean, obviously, if life doesn't have another plan for us on the in-between. But as we get older, one thing's true, is that if we don't continue to use our bodies and keep ourselves mobile, we are going to be dependent on other people. And I want to be able to wipe my own ass at 90 and being able to get up and down off the floor. Like, so I'm trying to be a better dad than my dad was, which the bar's set pretty low. And then now he's not even around to be a granddad anymore. So it's like, well, okay, just to be a better granddad, I just need to show up and just be here. But how do I want to be? Can I be there as the fun granddad? Can I be physically able to pick him up, throw him, all of these things that so many people can't. So I think 100% it's role model. It's just being it. And as you said, earlier in the conversation, it's like just kind of being there with the presence. So there's one thing on being physically present, and then there's that other thing of the emotional stuff, which we're all still trying to kind of figure out. When your kids are growing up, when they're adults, so let's say sort of 5-10 years from now, what do you hope that they're going to be saying about you as a dad?
I hope that they say that I was a really fun dad, who provided us with everything we needed and allowed us to just have a really fun childhood without having to worry about anything, and could just be kids and didn't have to be too serious. And I want them to think that I was a great role model for being a great dad, being a great husband, and was just lots of fun. I just want to be the fun guy.
Fun dad. Every dad wants to be the fun dad. Well, I shouldn't say every. Every's a big word to throw out there, but it's definitely a good space to be. All right. Hey, bud, probably wrap this up. Are there any final thoughts from you? Either is there a message that you'd want to leave to your kids if they're listening to this in the future, or any message out there for any of the dads out there that want to be a better dad?
Well, if my kids are listening 20 years time, sup dudes, come give me a big hug if you listen to this. For the dads, just keep on going, just keep on going. Everything's a phase, and just try.
I do love that. Everything's a phase.
Everything's a phase, and just try and seek out all the goodness. Like, seek out all the good stuff. Try and key one for me is just trying to like see the world through my kids' eyes. Just stop and like actually try and like see what they're looking at physically and what they're thinking about right then and there, and you'll just really appreciate so many things that we take for granted. I also just want to say, like, thanks for having these chats, man. I think it's really important. I think it's really important what you're doing, and because I think you're right. Like, entrepreneurship, parenthood, they are two things that can really isolate people, and when they're combined, it can be incredibly isolating. So good on you, man. Love what you're doing, and thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Thanks for being here, man. I really appreciate the chat. For people listening, where can they find you? Have you got any, are there any projects or things that you're sort of working on that you want to invite people over to, or they should check out?
I'm working on some stuff, but it's not really launched yet. Yeah. So really all that's relevant is my Instagram account, which is, I don't actually know. What is it? Is it art _green? I think it's art _green.
We'll put it in the show notes.
I don't even know. Yeah, I think that's me. Yeah,
So you
man.
can find you on, and obviously you've got sort of workout, home workout things that you're pushing on there. You've got sort of food tips, building stuff. I see obviously so you're doing a lot of that.
Yeah.
What would you kind of say is the main sort of stuff that people could get out of following you or kind of seeing what you're doing?
Yeah, some like interesting workouts. I post, I'll do lots of boring workout stuff. But if I ever do something interesting that I think,
Boring is good, man. More people need to do boring.
yeah,
like,
boring's
hot
great.
day.
Boring's great. But if I ever do interesting stuff that I think people might be interested in, or might be like, oh, that's a cool way to do things, or like, oh, I might even try that, or I might try that, but a bit different. Then I like to post that sort of stuff because I like seeing that because it makes me want to get creative, and I think it's quite fun being creative with exercise. It can be like a bit of a creative outlet for people. So yeah, that'd be cool. Or you just want to laugh, or you just want to actually, nah, don't come to me for a laugh. I'm not really that funny. And that's like, part of that's because I used to just post whatever I wanted on social media. But then, people try bring you down and cancel you sometimes. So I've got to be careful with what I post. So I'm not as funny as I am in real life. Trust me, I'm really funny in real life.
Okay, so we're coming around for dinner. That's what it is.
Yeah, man, come around for dinner.
Real life, face to face.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, cool.
Okay. No, thanks. Look, keep doing what you're doing, bud, and yeah, appreciate you being out there. It seems like you're sort of leading from the front as far as how to role model, being a better dad, showing up for your kids, doing your best to provide. I mean, you're putting things out, and you're off. Obviously, you got balancing businesses. Sounds like you're doing all the good stuff with relationships too, man. So I'm sure there'll be a lot of guys that'll probably want to connect and have conversations around that stuff too. So yeah, awesome.
Cool, man.
Thank you. All right. Well, we'll see you next time.
See you next time, man.
All right.
Adios.